Hi everyone. It is spring now, and that means that there are lots of people who are noticing flowers blooming on trees. There are lots of people who are seeing daffodils and tulips. There are lots of people who are planting gardens and putting seeds in the ground. And that made me think, for our read aloud this week, why don't I read a story to you called Seed to Plant? And this is a nonfiction text, so it's a little bit different than the fairy tales that we've been reading before. In this text, we are going to learn true facts about seeds and plants. And so as you're listening to it today, your job is to pay close attention to the illustrations and the words and see what true information you learn about seeds and how they grow and become plants, okay? So I'm going to read you part of this book today and pay close attention, like I said, to the photos and the words. This is called Seed to Plant. I also thought that we would do a directed drawing about one of my favorite spring plants, and I'll tell you about that at the very end, okay? Let's learn about how seeds grow and change. Nonfiction texts often have headings at the top, and the headings will tell us what each section is about. This heading says, what is a plant? So I know that on both of these pages, we're going to find the answers to that question. What is a plant? So as you listen to this section, think about what you learn about what a plant is. A plant is a living thing. Oh, there's one interesting fact right there. But it grows. It stays in one place, but it grows and changes just like you. Here's a photo of a plant in my classroom. We learned about this plant that we can find in ponds. It says white water lily. Here's another type of plant. This plant is found in forests. It's called a fern. I bet you have eaten the fruit from this plant. This is called a tangerine tree, and this is a beautiful flower called an orchid. Plants can be big or small. Some have flowers. Others also grow fruit. Trees are plants too. All right, this section said, what is a plant? So as the reader right now, I'm thinking about what I just learned from the photos and the illustrations. I'm remembering that a plant is something that is living and that it stays in one place, but that it grows and changes. I bet you were thinking about that as well. Plants are a big part of our world. Farmers grow fruit and vegetables. These plants give us food. Right now, look closely at this interesting photograph of a tractor that a farmer is using as he's gathering his plant that he grew. Here is something interesting. You might not have known that this plant. This says a farmer in his cotton field. Some plants can be used to make clothing. Your t-shirt is made from cotton plants. I wonder if you knew that or if that's new information. Other plants are cozy homes for animals. This label says a bear in a tree. So right now I want you to stop and think, what is something interesting that you learned from this section about plants? Maybe you're thinking about how plants can be fruits and vegetables and we can eat them. Or maybe you're thinking about how a tree can provide a home for a living creature. Or maybe you're thinking about cotton and you're surprised because you didn't even know that cotton was a plant. So interesting. Parts of a plant. You can use your body to remember the parts of a plant. Here I see a photo of a real person and some labels. It says, arms are like leaves. In my mind, I'm visualizing leaves. And I'm thinking about putting my arms out and remembering, oh, my arms are like plants, plant leaves. Your body is like a stem. Your feet are like roots. Interesting. Now on this part of the book, you will see now a diagram of a plant, and you will see those labels. So we can think of our body to remember these parts. But now listen to what each part does and why it's an important part of the plant. Roots hold the plant in the ground. Here, if you look really closely, you can see some roots growing down into the ground. They hold the plant into the ground. That is so interesting because I never really thought about that. If there were no roots and it was a windy day or there were a lot of rain, what might happen to the plant? Tell somebody what might happen. I bet you told them it might blow away or it might get taken somewhere else. But now I know that those roots help hold the plant in the ground. That's interesting because earlier we learned that plants stay in one place. So now I know that the roots are important for helping keep the plant in that one place that it's growing. So show me your body and show me the leaves. Or I mean the root. Ooh, your feet. I can't quite show you mine. The stem helps the plant stand up tall. Here's the stem. We were reminded of the long part of our body. The stem keeps that plant staying up tall so that it doesn't just flop down. Leaves soak up the sunlight. So here's a diagram that shows where the leaves are. That's what my hands were thinking about. The leaves help soak up the sunlight. Isn't that interesting? So now think of your body. Point to the part of your body that helps keep the plant in its place. And tell somebody what part that's called on the plant. The roots, kind of like our feet. The roots help keep them in one place. What part of the plant keeps the plant up so it's not flopping down? Did you tell somebody? The stem, say stem. And then what part of the plant soaks up the sun? What was that part? Say that part. What do we call that on a plant? The leaves. The leaves soak up the sun. Interesting. All right, let's read just a little bit more to learn some true information about plants. And some of you might be planting gardens, and now you're going to learn about how seeds grow. How does a plant begin? Whenever we see numbers, it's important that we read in that order. So here I see the number 1, and I see a little bit of a photograph here. So I'm going to read to find out about how a plant begins, and I'll start up here where the 1 is. Let's dig in. Most plants start as a seed. Here's a seed. Visualize a seed that you have seen before. You might be thinking about this seed. Get a seed in your mind, and you could think of this one if you haven't seen a seed before. Visualize one of those that you just saw in the book. Okay, so the plant starts as a seed. Number 2, the seed splits open. A shoot pushes out. This is called germination. That is a huge scientific word. Say that. Germination. Clap it. Germination. Say it to the ceiling. Germination. Say it to Mrs. Clark. Germination. Germination is when the seed cracks open and a shoot sprouts out. Do you see that? That is germination. So first we have the seed. We would put that into the soil, and then it would germinate. And this is germination when the shoot pushes out of that seed. And number 3 says a new plant is beginning. Oh, how interesting. So first we have a seed. As the reader, I'm reminding myself what we just learned. It germinates underneath the ground, deep in the soil. So here we can see the soil here. This plant has already germinated, but imagine the seed over here. Visualize that in your mind, and then visualize it splitting open and the shoot coming out. And then look over here. What is happening to these roots? Interesting. A new plant is beginning. Let's read over here to see how it changes and it grows. A seedling starts to grow. Roots reach down into the soil. Look in this photograph about how the roots grow. The seedling is that tiny, tiny plant that shoots up out of the ground. It's called a seedling. But look at, as it grows, you can see this photograph shows the same plant over time. So here its roots have become longer and longer and longer. And then we already learned that this part of the plant is called the stem. Look at how small the stem is here, and then it becomes longer and longer and longer. Oh wow, it's growing and becoming so much bigger. And then look here at the leaves. Remember, that's the part of the plant that soaks up the sun. We have just 2 here, and this plant has grown many more leaves. Isn't that so interesting? How a plant begins and how it grows and it changes from a seed to a plant with lots of roots and lots of leaves. That's so interesting. A plant grows. Watering a garden helps it to grow. Just like you, a plant grows bigger and bigger. The roots spread out and down into the soil. In my mind, I'm reminding myself of the photograph that showed that. The stem gets thicker and stronger. More leaves and branches grow. Boys and girls, this is interesting. Here we saw a plant with small leaves. Here I see a tree. A tree is another kind of a plant. Look at this stem. On a tree we call that a trunk. Look at it here, the smaller one that has not grown as big yet. Look at how much smaller that stem is. But it will grow and grow and grow. Isn't that so interesting? I'm gonna stop here. But I want you to remind yourself of one interesting fact that this nonfiction text taught you about how a seed grows and how it changes. So remind your mind, and I'm going to have you share what you learned with somebody. Maybe you're thinking about what a plant is, or maybe you're thinking of a plant that you have seen before. Maybe you are thinking about this photograph and remembering that we can eat plants. We call those fruits and vegetables. Maybe you're thinking about animals that live in plants. Or maybe you're thinking about things that you can use a plant for, like cotton. Or maybe you were really interested in the parts of a plant. Maybe you're thinking about the roots and how they help a plant, or the stem, or the leaves. Or maybe you're thinking about how a seed changes, or how the plant will grow. Tell somebody in the room with you one interesting fact that you learned about plants. And it would be really fun if you even wrote about that. You could write sentences, you could write a diagram, you could include labels. See if you can record through writing what you learned from this nonfiction text. Okay, we'll read a little bit more, and then I want us to do a directed drawing about one of my favorite springtime plants. and I would like us to do that together. So I am going to come back on in a little bit with a new video that you can watch, and we'll do a directed drawing together. I'm not going to tell you the name of the flower. You'll see once we draw it, but it's going to be one of Mrs. Clark's favorite flowers that I see outside of my house in the springtime. I can't wait to share that with you. Okay, bye.